about tonight is the process of investing, becoming an investor and being an investor and what it takes. And basically what I want everyone to start doing is dreaming, because when you dream, you kind of get into it. You have a drive behind it. There's a vision, there's organization, and there's stamina, because the dream makes you excited. And when you're excited about something, you have a little bit more stamina. And that's what it is to me when I think about investing, because you have to be a problem solver. You have to be a creator. You have to see the possibility where it doesn't look like there is much in some of these houses.
Okay,
So,
sounds
all
good.
right. Yeah. Okay. So what I do when I'm looking for property is I'm purposeful about what I'm looking for. I'm so purposeful about what I'm looking for that I'll set it up in advance. My husband and I have been talking about downsizing. You guys have probably heard me talk about downsizing for a few years now, but my husband doesn't really want to move. So it's pretty much, I have to get into the position and find the right thing. So this cute little house down there with a little path up next to it and the walking path, that is my new house. I will be closing on it the end of this month. It's in Brentwood, and it was a very unlikely situation. And this is kind of my example of what my point is. My goal was to find something that fit our lifestyles, that was half the size of our house at least, and had to be within a 10-mile radius of the lodge in Pear, because we go there every day. It's one thing my husband said he's not going to give up. I'm like, fine, that's where you plant your flag, fine. So I set up a search 10-mile radius around the lodge. This happened to come up, but it came up as a tear down.
Oh,
Yeah, right? The owner has lived there for 25 years. She doesn't want to mess with it. She doesn't want to have to move anything. She doesn't want to have to repair anything, nothing. And because the land values are so high in Brentwood, she could list it as a tear down and get out of it what she needed to. No muss, no fuss. So fortunately, I saw it immediately. And I called the agent and I said, well, I don't know how bad the condition is. I'm not too afraid of work. The location is great. I've taken my husband by to see the location. He likes the location, and he's like Mikey. He doesn't like anything. So we're on go. And she said, well, let me find out, because nobody was allowed to see the inside. It was a tear down. They didn't want to have any showings or anything. And because we wanted it for ourselves, they were going to allow us, the only people, to go in and take a look at it. So we did. It's not a tear down. It is so not a tear down. I'm so excited about it. But that's one of those things where you have to uncover the opportunity there. So we got it for basically the land value, and we'll put a little bit of sweat equity into it. And we probably bought it $60,000, $70,000 under current market value. And then we'll put a little bit more into it and live there forever, as my husband says. Okay, so talking about the basic objectives of different types of investing strategy, I want you to think of why you want to invest. What is it that you're trying to obtain? And so if you're looking for a quicker return, your investment strategies are going to be wholesaling or flipping or minor land development. Land development in that you can take it, put a few things in, and let it either be subdivided or someone else developing it from there. So those are very quick returns. You're talking about slow returns, like building your retirement fund or building a college fund or building a portfolio. Then you're talking about long-term rentals, which are more than a year, or short-term rentals, which are less than a year, like medical staff, Airbnbs, or commercial real estate. Those are all slow returns.
what do you mean by slow? What do you mean by slow returns, Jill? 1 year or more? Is that what you're saying?
Well, slow returns would be, so when you're doing a flip, just by the nature, it would be something that you want to get in and out of. You've got maybe a 3-month investment, 5-month max. you're in and out of that project. Where if you're getting a rental, you're in for it for at least a year. And oftentimes you won't make money back for that first year because you'll be breaking even with the repairs that you've had to do, or with lost rental time, or whatever the situation is. So it's going to take you longer to make a great gains. Where a flip, you could make $30,000 to $60,000 in that 5-month span. You're not going to make that much money on the slower ones. Where you talk about a rental, it's going to take you a long time to gain $30,000 to $60,000. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically what you want to do is you want to be able to answer the following questions. What is prompting your decision to make an investment, to do an investment in the first place? What is it that's driving you to do an investment? Have you spoken with a mortgage lender? You always want to have your money in place ahead of what you're going for, because especially in any market, everything goes very, very quickly, as we've seen. If it's a good deal, other people are going to recognize that they're looking for it. So make sure that you have your money ready. What is that price range? And when I talk about what is that price range, it's not just how much money do you have? Because if you have $100,000, then is that your purchase costs and your holding costs and your repairs, or is that just the purchase cost? So what is your price range? If you're thinking that you have, $100,000 and you buy a property that's 50, then you've got 50 to play with to update it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have to be able to allocate the amount of money that you have for the entire project, and be very careful not to base too much of your funds on future funds. Like, I've got closings in 3 months or whatever, like that kind of money. Because as we know, closings can fall apart. And there's nothing worse than being in a position of not having enough money to complete your project. What type of property are you interested in purchasing? Are you interested in a single family, multifamily, commercial? Because those aren't available in every single area. So it's important to know exactly what you're looking for. Is your primary goal cash flow or appreciation? So let me ask you, Rick, what does that mean to you? Is your primary goal cash or appreciation?
I have yet to decide. I have yet to determine. I've got questions about it because I don't know if I'm your typical investor, primarily because I'm an older guy. So what I have to be careful of is that I don't have something that's not bringing me money back in a timely manner, whatever that may be. I don't know if that makes sense or not. But yeah, appreciation, something that's going to last, it's going to take longer. And what was the other part of that?
Cash flow.
Cash flow is something that, that's going to be bringing money into you on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
yes,
or immediately. Because cash flow can be an immediate thing, like a flip. That's cash flow. You put money in and you get the money back. That's cash flow. Appreciation is definitely a longer term thing. And in St. Louis, we have fair appreciation. Sometimes it's 3%. Sometimes, like in the last couple of years, it's 7 or 8%. But that's not what we base our buying on unless we're doing a long term. We base our buying typically on the cash flow, the revenue, because places like New York, California, Colorado, their appreciation goes up so fast that you can buy something at the beginning of the year, and by mid-year, you've accumulated quite a bit of appreciation. You don't have a lot of cash flow, but you do have a lot of appreciation, where ours is more flipped. We get higher cash flow than we do appreciation.
That's pretty typical. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So flipping would be more of a, would you say that's more of a, well, never mind. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a good question. Go ahead. Would I say that flipping is more of a what?
I guess prevalent than buy and hold.
I wouldn't say that flipping is more prevalent than buying a home, but I would say that we in St. Louis are looking for cash flow versus appreciation overall. And cash flow, even when you're buying a rental, you're getting cash flow monthly. Appreciation, yeah, I'll keep it for 5 to 10 years and get some appreciation, but that's not our main goal.
So that's
Our main,
that's normal in the St. Louis market. Is that what you're saying? That's how most investors in this market are looking for cash flow primarily.
primarily, yes,
Okay.
because that's our advantage. We can buy significantly low properties and get a decent return. I had a property in Jennings that I bought for 21,000 and I rented it for 850. That's huge cash flow based on that. But that's not an everyday item. But you couldn't buy anything in California or Colorado for 21,000.
Right.
Right? You're going to buy it really high, but you're going to be able to sell it even higher pretty quickly thereafter. So their goal, their it's okay. Their objectives are a little bit different than ours. It's just the way it is. What kind of return do you want on your investment? Some people don't really think about a specific cap rate. They're not very familiar with cap rate. Other people, that's what they live and die for, is cap rate. For me, when I'm thinking about what kind of return do I want on my investment, I have what I've told you all along, the 1% rule about rentals. So your rent should be at least 1% of your purchase price. So if you bought something for $100,000, your rent should be at least $1,000. Right? And then as far as flips, I try to go with a minimum original estimate of return. It depends on how quickly and how expensive the property is, but between 25 and 35,000. I try to get closer to 35,000 as my minimum expected return, because if you make the return too skinny, one problem and you've lost all of it, and then you're upside down. So for me, my comfort zone is about 35 plus. And that's on properties that, that are probably 160 to 250 to purchase, and then the rehab and the resale. So it's not really a very expensive property. The more expensive the property, the more I would want that larger return, because it's a larger risk, you want a larger return. If you could make $35,000 on flipping a $160,000 property into a $300,000 property or whatever with the expenses versus a $500,000 property, wouldn't you stick with a smaller one?
Sure. Higher return. Right. Sure.
Exactly. So that's the way I think of it too. If I'm going to put more risk and more money out there, I'm going to get a bigger return. I'm going to expect a bigger return from the very beginning. Would you be willing to fix it up, or do you like more of a move in? So these questions basically are here to get you to dig down into what is it that you're looking for. If you can answer all of these questions, you've basically outlined your own investment strategy. And everybody's investment strategy is different, because everybody's answers to these questions are going to be a little bit different. Does that make sense? So I'm putting these questions out there for you specifically to think about this. Because oftentimes I get investors that will say, okay, well, teach me how to invest. And I'm happy to teach you strategies, but I can't teach you what your individual portfolio should look like. That is based on the answers to these questions. Why invest in St. Louis? I think we've got a really good thing going. We talked about the advantage of not having the huge waves. You know, we're the Midwest, we're pretty comfortable. You can buy long-term rentals anywhere from 50,000 to 200,000 pretty readily. Like I said, I bought one for 21. So there are fringes where you can get them higher or lower, and our cap rate is really pretty good. We usually get 10 and 12%. You ask somebody in California or Colorado if they get that kind of a cap rate, it's not quite so common. Duplexes are really inexpensive too. We've got great property managers that work between 8 and 10%. We've got great demographics, you know, so many things going for us in St. Louis that why not St. Louis?
Cool.
Yeah. So how do you find the right properties? So tell me about your strategies. Mike, I know you're there too, and I know that you've gotten quite a few leads. Who supplies the leads typically?
Really wholesalers, also, getting stuff from the MLS are the two, well, and then networking. I go to a lot of networking events here in the St. Louis area. So I've gotten to know a lot of people all throughout. And so those are the three primary sources of leads.
That's pretty much what I do too. That's pretty much exactly what I do. I would say the bulk of my leads come from wholesalers, exactly like you said, wholesalers, networking, and MLS. And you still can, or you can again, find things on the MLS. They're starting to pop up where there are pretty decent deals on the MLS, but they go really, really quickly. We'll look at one in a second one. So how do you evaluate the leads once they come in? What are your kind of trigger things? I'll tell you what mine are too, but just curious.
Yeah, so usually the first thing I do, I take a look at the pictures, see what kind of work needs to be done. Right now, I'm focused more on light to moderate rehab. My wife, we have a process in place where I'll put the address and what I get, the information I get, like 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, the address, 1 story, 2 stories, so forth. And then she runs comps on the MLS. And then what I'll do then is take a look at the comps versus what's the asking price for it, and get a rough idea. I kind of get a rough idea of what I think the rehab cost is going to be. And if it looks like something on paper that might possibly work out, I'll usually arrange a walk with the wholesaler, or my wife will schedule a time to get into the property, or just get in and walk the property. Just because pictures are great, but a lot of times you don't really know until you walk the property yourself.
Absolutely, because for the most part, they're going to avoid the pictures of the catastrophes. They're not going to show you, oh, there's a whole wall missing in the back of the house. That's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. The pictures are a good start, but you definitely want to walk it.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned to do that kind of determines whether or not I even get up and walk it is I do a quick evaluation. If there's enough in the comps and the CMA, if I just run a basic CMA and I check that property and then I sort by square footage. And if there are things smaller than that have a justifiable difference in price, then I will start going. But if it's close enough to what everything else is sold, that might shut me down right there before I even go any farther. But I do the same things. Yeah.
So you get a rough idea of the average square foot in the area, and then determine what the square footage is based on the asking price, and if there's if there's a big enough difference between what the price per square foot is for the prospective property versus what the average price per square foot is there in the area, then that's what then at that point, you may take the next step of walking it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then once I do that, and kind of come back to it, then I'll determine exactly what I think the ARV is, because after you've gone to see it, it's not only the condition, but it's the layout and where it's located, and that doesn't have anything ridiculous binding it. Then I'll determine the ARV. And for me, when I'm determining the ARV, I try to use really conservative numbers. So even if it looks like the neighbor right across the street sold for, $350, I might expect to put it on the market at $340 or even less, even if it's the identical house, because markets fluctuate. And even though in this market, when people are coming in and overbidding, it's okay if they overbid and they make the decision, but if we ask them to pay too much, they shut us down really quickly. So I try to be really conservative on the ARV. Plus it helps me too, because if I determine, I'm going to get top dollar for this, and I base all of my repairs and my plans on that number, and it doesn't happen, I'm really not going to be happy. So do you determine your AIV the same way or similar?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much the same way, because, to your point, you may walk into a 2-1 and find that there's, a dining room that you can close off one wall and turn it into a 3-1 or a 3-1 or something like that. And that's obviously going to bump up your ARV. So yeah, we do it pretty much the same way. And, to your point, Jill, sometimes, seems as though if you price it a little too high, you're ruling out a lot of people that might have walked it otherwise and taken a look at your house. But if you price it a little bit lower, you're going to bring in more people, and possibly there's a chance you're going to get more by pricing it lower than if you price it higher. So that's totally
100%. And just by having more people in there, you get the auction effect. Everybody thinks that everybody else wants to buy that house.
Yeah.
Even though half of them may be family members that are just coming through because they're nosy. It doesn't matter. The crowd will help us. So I agree that you're not, especially in this market, you're not going to get people, you're not going to be leaving money on the table because you price it too low.
Right. Exactly.
May I ask a question? Both you guys, I'm glad I'm sitting in on this. I get to learn a little bit. When you're looking at the ARV, you go in and you've got your base price, and you've got your ARV. Then you need to determine or estimate what your repair costs are going to be. How do you guys do that with any kind of feeling of confidence? I mean, I can sit there and say, okay, a basement costs $20,000 to $30,000 or whatever, depending on, maybe $50,000, depending on where and what grade that you do and things like that. But it's all guess. You guys have been doing this for a while, so you kind of got an idea, what it's going to do, like to add a wall, like Mike was just saying, to make an additional bedroom. Where do you guys get those numbers at? Well,
for me, I start with the rule of thumb, or just the average of $40 per square foot. It's just a general $40 per square foot.
And what is that? That's your repair?
Mm-hmm.
That's your estimate, $40 per square foot? Okay.
Yeah, and that's before I do my final numbers, but that's what I base my repair costs on before I go see it, because I do a pro forma, which I'll go over next, before I ever go see the property. And so I need some kind of a number to put in there. And $40 per square foot is a pretty good average for a medium-sized repair based on a rehab, based on the work that I've done in the flips over the last few years. I know prices have gone up and down, but that's a pretty average number to be able to get a ballpark figure to start with. And then once I go see the property and take notes as I'm walking around, I'll go back and itemize those things. And that'll give me a better idea of, is that $40 per square foot just enough, too much, or too little?
Okay.
Based on those things. Now, when you're talking about square footage, remember that the tax records are based on main floor, second floor, everything above ground. It doesn't include the lower level. So especially if you're talking about a ranch, that's a lot of square footage in the lower level if the lower level is finished. So you would actually have to almost double the square footage, because that's your realistic cost if the basement is finished. If the basement is not finished, then I don't worry about that additional space if I'm not going to finish it. I would put it into the major repairs that are down there. Like if there's foundation cracks, or I know that the water heater and furnace and all of that stuff needs to be replaced. Those I would put in specific expenditures, not necessarily based on square footage.
Okay.
But I'd start with the $40 per square foot. How about you, Mike? How do you determine?
Yeah, the same way, Jill. I mean, I usually just take a rough idea of it based off of price per square foot. And then to your point, once I walk the property, I have a spreadsheet that I got from someone else here in St. Louis that basically has everything itemized out, and it says what the average price of that repair is here in St. Louis. Now that type of spreadsheet would work anywhere, but you'd probably want to update it to be more geared toward wherever your local area is. And I have taken a few of those things on that spreadsheet and changed them a little bit, because prices have gone up a little on lumber and things.
And paint?
Yeah, paint, all that stuff. So yeah, that's exactly what I do. And usually what I'll do is I'll take, if I'm looking at what I want to possibly pay for it, is I'm going to take whatever I think what I eventually think that ARV is going to be. I will take 70% of that, and I will deduct what from that 70% of the ARV, what I come up with as a rehab cost. And then whatever's remaining there, that's what I consider my maximum allowable offer, and that's what I'm willing to offer for the property. And the reason I'm doing it that way, Rick, is because I do my primary strategy is what's called the BRRRR strategy. So I'm trying to do more of the BRRRR strategy. Now, to Jill's point, if it's a fix and flip, it's not necessarily that same equation. It's, to Jill's point, looking for ideally a 25 to 30, 35, $40,000 profit on a fix and flip.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so you're looking at basically a 30% return. Is that right, Mike? Am I understanding that correctly?
Because well, more or less, yes. Initially, I'll look to be having ideally around 30% equity in that property right off the bat. What I typically do then, Rick, is I have a lending arrangement with my primary bank. The lending arrangement is 80% of the appraisal value. So once I acquire buy the property, rehab it, I then turn around and go to my lender and they will lend me 80% on the appraisal value of that. So I'll take that money back out and look at putting it in the next property. So really when I do that, the idea is to have two things: have roughly 80%, or excuse me, 20% equity in it, and it's using other people's money.
Nice.
Exactly,
Yeah.
as much as possible.
As
Now,
much as
just
possible.
as much as possible.
We've left plenty of money in projects, but
Yeah.
I wish I could say it's been 100% other people's money, but that wouldn't be totally accurate, because obviously there's going to be, learning, a lot of learning opportunities, especially in the beginning. And to your point, Rick, initially, that's the thing. You have a rough idea, but sometimes the best way to learn is, unfortunately, jumping in and doing it. And is it costly? Can it cost you? Yeah, but I look at it like it's an education. It's an investment in my education,
Right.
I don't like to leave money in the project, but if I do, it's a learning opportunity, and I know I'm eventually going to get the money out of it anyway through Jill's point, cash flow and appreciation over the long term and stuff like that.
Yeah, which kind of takes us to the next question. What are your exit strategies? So I recommend, before you even put an offer in on any property, you think of at least 3 exit strategies. What will you do if? And that will help you cover your bum if you do end up being in a position where you can't get the profit out of it. You could pivot and do another thing. I also want to ask you, and I'll talk about that too in just a second, but so Michael, are you doing conventional loan with your lender?
Yeah. So it's a commercial loan.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, commercial loans, and just on the cash refi out. So what I've done in the past, when I initially buy the property, I've gotten in one of 2 ways so far, with either own our own money or hard money lenders. And so what I'll do is I'll either use our own money or hard money lenders to purchase the property, to rehab the property, and then once all that's done and I get it appraised, then we have the bank do the commercial loan to cash refi out. And I was going to ask you, is that what you do on it, Jill?
Well, it depends on how long I'm going to hold them, but most of the time what I'll do is I'll do a hard money and then pay it all back when I flip it.
Yep. Okay.
If I was holding it, I've been using my own money and
Yeah.
then burn from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
A question I had for you, because you're talking about multiple exit strategies, and totally agree, because I think when you think of a property, I think right now multiple exit strategies are, I think of either wholesaling it, fixing and flipping it, or renting it. And even when you think about renting it, what kind of renting are you going to do? Are you going to do a long-term rental? Are you going to rent it to traveling nurses? Are you going to short-term rent it? Because we bought a property just recently down near Soulard that initially, when we bought it, the idea was we were going to long-term rent it. But now, as we're wrapping up and getting ready to go, we're actually going to start with it being a Airbnb, short-term rental. So
yeah, Airbnbs are great. And in the downtime, when you don't have quite as much traffic, you can convert it then to hospital or medical professionals that will rent a little bit longer, but they're great clients.
Yeah.
And then, as we talked about last time, instead of just getting a regular old renter, get a rent to own candidate, because they put a lot more down.
Yeah.
They're going to take much better care of the property, and 99% of the time, they're never going to buy it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So,
I can't remember what I was just reading, but I was reading an article yesterday, I think, and it was talking about the advantages of rent to own, lease to owns. So, yeah,
I love that strategy. I love it as a landlord because I get much better tenants, and I love it as an investor because it's a way for me to use other people's money and never have to put anything into a property.
yeah,
And I've gotten several subject twos where they've signed over the deed or, you know, whatever. I think that's worked out really well, but the exit strategies are very, very important. Definitely, before you even finalize on that project, know how you can pivot yourself out of it. And if you're not sure, ask other people. I mean, it's not time to guess.
yeah.
It's time to strategize. So one comment I wanted to make, the reason
Can
I
I ask
asked
you,
you,
I'm sorry, Jill, can I ask you a question real quick on the exit strategy? Do you ever wholesale any of them? I know you're, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I hear a lot of people talk about, I know a lot of times investors, what they'll do is they'll get these properties under contract, and what they do is they keep the better ones for themselves to either hold, and then they'll wholesale the other properties. So
absolutely.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, it seems like a lot of folks are doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep that as one of my exit strategies on just about every property. As a matter of fact, the last property that we did on Burr Oak, it was one of my first exit strategies because there wasn't enough meat on the bone from the short sale. They wanted too much money, where the only thing I could do would be to either wholesale it to somebody who had a contracting business and could, you know, absorb that, or to an end buyer that would do the work for themselves, so they don't need an active return. They would get it in appreciation. So
Yeah.
absolutely, I think of that all the time. So talking about before I forget, something new that I just heard about with conventional loans. As of April 1st, conventional loans are going to change that your credit score, anything under a 770 is going to be deemed for lesser desirable credit. Wow, that used to be 680. And the cash out refinance, you have to own it a year before you can cash out refinance. So if you were wanting to borrow money from a hard money lender and then do conventional lending and cash out refinance, be very aware of that. The other thing is that their income to debt ratios have gone up significantly. So they're being more conservative with conventional loans than they have been in the past.
What a
Are those
change.
loans that the bank is turning around and selling to Freddie and Fannie? Is that because the reason why I asked
Probably.
that is because the bank I use to cash refi out is a small local bank, and they don't sell their loans they don't turn around and sell their loans. They keep their loans in house. So I didn't know if that applied to those. I was maybe thinking that that's Freddie and Fannie saying, hey, if you're going to turn around and sell those to us, this is what we're requiring. Do you know on that, Jill?
I don't, but I do know that you're absolutely right. The smaller local banks you're going to have better luck with, because they don't sell them off to Fannie and Freddie. They don't have to abide by those. They can do more boutique or portfolio loans. So definitely have a good relationship with a local lender. Credit unions are great. I don't have any problem with them. It's the bigger banks that you have a little bit more difficulty with. You know, that's my experience, definitely.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay, so then we're agents, you and I and Rick, we're all agents, so we will write our own offer, but not everybody is who's an investor. And so I want people to think about, once you find the property, who is going to write that offer for you and who is going to put the terms in? What terms do you have in there? So think about those before you get it under contract. Start brainstorming with people. And like Michael said, you go to a lot of meetups, a lot of meetings, and hear so much information. I think we learn so much from each other all the time. I think that's a good way to do it. So make sure you know who's going to write the offer and what terms you want to put into the offer. Never, ever, ever, ever give up your ability to inspect unless you plan to tear it down. And even then, do inspections, because you don't know what chemicals are in the ground or what, all of those kinds of things. So do your inspections, even if you're going to buy it as in or replace everything, at least know what you're walking into. So that brings us to, what should you do in your contingency period? And this is talking about the inspections and what kind of inspections that you should do. And, there are many types of inspections, general inspections, and so on and so forth. One of the things that I learned from the Burr Oak project is that I now take my plumber and my electrician as my first two inspectors. Then I take the general building inspection, which is kind of like a general practitioner. They check out the whole house, but they're not specific to plumbing problems or to electrical problems, and those things can really cost you a lot. So I have another house under contract with one I showed you that we're moving into. And that was the first thing I did before I brought my building inspector. I brought my electrician out there. And then I made sure that the building inspector that I got was a former plumber. So I made sure to cover those two things. And I did my sewer lateral. I did, whatever, all the inspections, because I don't think you can do too many inspections. Once the inspections are completed, then we know we can either negotiate credit with the seller. Even if they say this is an as is, we will do absolutely nothing with this. Even if it's a bank, I still ask, because I have gotten many times where they will do it, especially if it's something like radon or mold. Everybody's afraid of mold, especially banks. So don't forget to ask. Oops, hope I just stopped sharing my screen. Let me go back and find that again. There we go. Thank goodness I had that saved open. Okay. Share screen. There we go. We are back. Okay. All right. So this is a property, an example of a property that I found in the last few days on the MLS. Now, the MLS is the most expensive, least likely place to find a property, but you still do find properties. So this particular one is on Tesson Ferry Road, 110. I mean, when I just look at the property and I looked at the price, I'm like, ding, 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 I got to look at that one. It just triggered. It's a good size. It's a cute little property. The price tag is 10. I'm familiar with that area. And that's what comes from knowing your area. That's why I talk about all the time. You don't have to buy something everywhere in St. Louis. If you focus on particular areas and get to know them really well, you'll be much faster. You'll recognize when something like this comes up, it's a good deal. So this is the property 110. And this, okay. So there's my little property right there. And not mine, I didn't buy it. It's 1,200 square foot. Look at this one right below it. That's 1,400 square foot, just a little bit bigger. 3 bedrooms, but this one has 2, but it could have 3 maybe. Look at the price difference though. Look at the prices around there. That is definitely one to pay attention to. Well, not anymore because it went pending. But I mean, immediately it sends off a trigger and you start looking for things. So these are the comps in that area. Even this little old thing went for 115.
It has 700 square feet.
700 square feet, and it is no looker. I mean, it is not done.
Yeah.
And they're selling that for more than this one. Ding, ding, ding. This is something we want to look at. Definitely something we want to look at. So that would be number one. I would check the comps and look for things that are smaller, that are priced above that. Let's see if I can get back to my, I apologize. I've got this screen in my way, so I can't.
Jill, that screen that you were just a second ago, is this from Command?
Hold on. All right. This one?
Oh, this is one home screen.
Yeah, this is from Maris. So Maris has changed over to one.
Mhm.
So if you do a CMA and you email it, this is what you get.
Nice.
Yeah. And you can grab that link and use it in a presentation or whatever you want. Okay, now we're back. Sorry about that. Okay, so what I would do then, once I look at the comps, is I would begin with the pro forma. Okay, and this is the pro forma I use every time. It's very, very simple Excel spreadsheet. I just fill in the square footage because remember again, Rick, what we were talking about is I use the repair value, my initial repair value at $40 per square foot. So cost of repairs right there. And if I look at the formula, it's 40 times D3, which is the square footage. So it auto calculates that for me. Come on. Doobie doobie doo. All right, let's go back up to the top and kind of go through this just real quick. Okay, so it's 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I put in the list price. I automatically build in a 10% discount. Do I get it every time? No, but I try to look at, okay, well, if I got it at a 10% discount, what would that mean? If I did my own financing as an investor, I would have to put 25% down. So I'm putting that in there. So it tells me how much my down payment was going to be and how much I have to finance. My closing costs are typically about 1%, right? What is the actual property tax? Because that calculates into things down below. My interest rate is 10% because I'm doing this based on if I were doing this with the investment group and I pay them 10%. And when I put it in as a 10-year mortgage, it gives me the right number that I need per month. Full year insurance is a guesstimation based on my insurance. Utility setup, 150 is very generous. Usually you don't have to spend that much money to have utilities set up, but I'm going to put it in there anyway. So my all-in purchase costs are figured out. Just looking at this property, oh, I didn't go back and show you what the property looked like on the inside. I apologize. I slide on back to that guy, because you probably want to see him. Let's see. There it is. Okay. Because that is part of our evaluation. That's a step in our evaluation, is we look at the pictures. 110 looks great, the prices around it looks great, but how does this guy look inside? Okay, so we just take a look at the pictures. Exterior, we're going to pay attention. Obviously, these things are going to have to be in our repair costs. We see them. Those awnings are going to have to go away. We're going to have to put them in there. These are those ugly, yucky, sticky ball trees that we have here that everyone hates. So in this time of year, go up to a tree. I know this sounds funny, but bend the branches. You want to see if it's a live tree or not. We can't tell because they're not budding yet. A dead tree is a lot of money. So don't be afraid to go bend limbs. All right, here it is. This is the property inside. So the walls, I mean, I look at the whole thing. Are there cracks? There's a water spot there. I see, or discoloration. So maybe the roof needs a little love, but it doesn't look like it's come down the walls. This carpet is disgusting, but I'm betting there are wood floors underneath it. Love this mid-century decor. I think that's way cool, and that's something that's very desirable right now. Because it has wood windows, I would say it's probably newer windows because they didn't put those type of windows in originally, but I don't know, I'd have to go see it. Rooms are a good size. Because it has a ceiling fan and kit, we know it probably has some updated electrical. That's an assumption. Kitchen, needs to be redone, but look at the size of that kitchen. I mean, that is definitely a decent sized kitchen.
The walls look like a public toilet, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Like
Yes.
the old public.
The old public toilet with the subway tile. Yes. But it's got a lot of character, a lot of open space. This is going to have to be replaced, but it's got a gas stove. That's a plus. Wood floors. There they are. Because my last house had wood floors that we had to refinish, I've got a better idea of what the cost is for those. So I can guesstimate a little bit better. So every time you do this, you get better and better at it. But I too have a list, Rick, if anybody wants it. I got it from Pillar to Post, and it is a list of basic rehab costs. And I had my VA type it all up, so now it's an Excel spreadsheet.
That would be nice. We'll email you.
Yep, please email me. Perfect. Okay, this is the bathroom, the one and only bathroom, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the only bathroom. When you look at a bathroom or you look at a kitchen, look at the room on either side of it. Can you make that into a bathroom? Does the house need another bathroom? I mean, just always think outside of the box. That's why I say at the very beginning, dream. Another bedroom, decent size. Love this room. Look at this garden room. Everybody wants a room like this. This is probably asbestos tile on the floor, just given the age and the style of the tile. That's okay. Leave it alone. If you can leave asbestos alone, it's a good insulator. Just go right over the top of it with some luxury vinyl or something like that, and you are good to go.
You know, I like your, I really like the way you said it, that this room is lovely.
Yeah, I have a lot of imagination.
Yeah.
It's really funny when we go look at a house, my husband and I, because I go, oh my gosh, this is great. And he's like, tear it down. It's really sad. I was kind of surprised that he actually went for the house that we're buying because I thought he was going to say that same thing, but fortunately,
She trusts you already.
no, he does not trust me.
Oh,
After
she
30,
does.
after 30 years, he still doesn't trust me. So this is the basement. I would say that it's partially finished. If they don't show pictures of these rooms, but I might add another 100 or 200 square foot, excuse me, square foot into my figuring if I thought that I might have to go back and finish those rooms. But it looks like a pretty decent basement. You can see some spalling on the wall there where the paint is peeling away. Is that from water leaking from this window, or is it the dryer has gotten fuzz all over it? I don't know, but I'm going to automatically suspect that there's a problem there. Why not?
Would you go and see the property before you make an offer?
Yes, if I could. Now, it depends on how quickly I think it's going to go. If I think it's going to go and I think it's really a diamond in the rough, I would go ahead and get it under contract contingent upon inspection. And when I do contingent upon inspection on a property or a situation like that, basically what I would say is within 5 business days, I'm going to have my inspection. Now, 5 business days is not nearly as small as you might think when you say, oh, well, but you get 10 days
It's
traditionally.
It's 9 with the 2 weekends. Yeah.
Right, because you've got at least 4 days of those 10 days that are weekends. And if you've got holidays in there, forget it. And so I always say 5 business days, not including holidays.
Would you put that in a special agreement area?
Yep.
Not just like whenever we put the numbers 10 or 8, you would just put it specially.
I would put it in the
Yeah.
special agreement.
Yeah.
I would put in the number of days, I would put 5 business
Mhm.
in that little space that's
Mhm.
small enough that you can do that. And then I would explain further because I want to allow myself not just 5 business days, but excluding holidays.
Right.
I want to make sure that they have that. And so that gives me plenty of time to get my inspectors out there. And in that time, and at the other thing I say it is that this is for my information only. At the end of my inspection period, I will give the listing agent notice that we will either proceed or we will leave the contract with all earnest money returned. Exactly how I say it. Okay. Furnace looks like it's in pretty good condition. The water heater looks like it's newer. How do I know that the water heater looks like it's newer?
Tank,
Can I ask a question real quick? Well, do you ever try to negotiate the price down based on that inspection before you, or
Or you release.
before you release?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I even did on the house that I was purchasing for myself, and I really didn't want to lose that house. So that was
Okay.
being very brave of me. But yeah, 100%, even though I say that that's what the terms are, it's more to make the sellers feel at ease than what I might end up really doing. Because yeah, my intention is I'm either going to go through with it or I'm going to let it go. But if I'm going to go through with it and I find these major problems, then as a business person, it would be ridiculous not to try.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
But I just want to cover my bum. So looking at this wall, it's doing the same thing that the other wall was doing. So
I'm sorry, Jimmy, going back to your question, because we just interrupted you. So why do we know that this water heater is new?
oh, thank you, because the expansion tank. Yeah. It's got an expansion tank. It's newer.
Mhm.
I think that they started requiring expansion tanks in 2008 or 10, something like that.
Mhm.
So that tells me that it's newer. Now, looking at that wall, I can see that fraying again, and you can kind of see shadows of where water might have been. So when I go to look at this property, I'm going to investigate that more. I'm going to note that and I'm going to go look at it because it could just be shadows. It could be that they actually put in a French drain because I can see the discoloration. Is it going all the way around and they corrected the problem? That would be yippee. So we'll see. I think this is one of those semi-finished rooms in the basement. So another thing that I see is the ceiling. The ceiling is either going to have to all come down and the rafters be painted black, or I'm going to have to budget in to repair the ceiling.
is it a concrete floor or is it got carpet on it? Can you tell?
It looks like a concrete floor. And you know what? I'm seeing that same shading in here, see along the wall where it's lighter. I'm
Mhm.
thinking they put a French drain system in. There's water damage right there. That needs to be waterproof. Now see from the window that huge concrete waterfall where they tried to fix it? That crack from the corner, that doesn't scare me. Cracks from the corners of windows and doors are the most common cracks you will see. I'm not a building inspector. I'm not a structural engineer, but I know being told that many, many times that is the truth. And the fact that this crack is kind of in the direction of what the pressure would be, it doesn't really make me all that nervous. This
Even
in the
though,
corner makes me more nervous. That would make me more nervous, but it doesn't kill the deal. Doesn't kill the deal. Got great waterproofers out there. St. Louis, our soil is sand and clay. What do we expect? You know, it's gonna shift, it's gonna move, it's gonna retain water. We just have to figure out, is this water a foundation problem, or is this water a landscape problem
Mhm.
or a gutter problem? I see that so often.
Easy fix.
Easy fix. So here, it looks like there are more cracks or at least patching,
That's a
Not sure.
homeowner deal there.
right? Not sure what that's all about, but it definitely would give me pause.
Ooh,
Or leaks from the windows. That tells me windows probably need to be replaced. It also tells me that there's probably a grading problem or landscape problem. There's the backyard. It's pretty good size. We've got a lot of tree limbs. Is that from dead trees or a storm? These are things that kind of trigger me to make notes. So when I go out there, I'm very purposeful about what I'm looking for. There's the back of the house. They've got a tarp on the roof. Does that tell you that it might have roof damage? Probably so. So think about a new roof. What would that cost? This shed needs to go. So that's got to be hauled away. How much is that going to be? How are you going to do it? And we're back at the front again. So that's our cute little house. So I would definitely go take a look at this. There's nothing in there that said run away. Definitely some red flags to say, okay, I need to get more information about that. But with the price differences in that area, the potential for profit there, I would say that's definitely a go look at. Let me get back to our sheet. Okay. Okay. So looking at a 10% discount, maximum offer would be 99, but that's not necessarily true because it depends on what our potential profit is. If our potential profit came out wacky doodle, I would probably go over list price even. Okay. But that's built in there. Okay. So then our all-in purchase cost is down there. I figured this on 3 months. So our projected cost is over here. These are our monthly costs down here, but based on 3 months, this will be our overall projected cost. So our overall holding costs are going to be 63,000. All-in purchase costs the same. Holding costs go up a little bit because you've got utilities and things. Estimated payoff is going to be the same. The cost of sale, I always build that in immediately because I'm going to sell it. So I immediately build in the cost of sale, which I figure, oops, where is it? Cost of sale right here. I figure at 6% commission. Now, if this were my project, I would take it down to 2.7 because I wouldn't take a commission. I would only pay a commission. Okay, but figure that in right away. So all in costs, we're at 178 after repair value. I put it 215 based on the ARV. Now we did see that house at 225, but remember I take a conservative ARV in case the market changes or we can't meet whatever, whatever happens. Let's take a conservative number. But even with a conservative number, we come up with a potential profit of $36,000.
in 3 months.
That green light, we're going. And so when I looked at the ARV, kind of give you an idea of where I take some of the numbers for my ARV.
What
So-
is your minimum profit that you would go with the project? Because this one is 36,000 on this property. When you wouldn't bother?
When I wouldn't bother.
Hi.
Hello,
Long
Michelle.
day.
Michelle, you are missing the most important class.
Apparently, I'm sure that is true.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So to answer your question, what's my minimum?
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the property. I mean, it depends. If I could wholesale it and do nothing with it and make $5,000, I'm
you would do
fine.
it. But let's say that you have to do flips, like you have to do
Okay.
some of the repairs. And you know that might be the truth, because you might say, well, if I just change the carpet and paint the walls, it's a different thing.
Exactly, exactly. So there's not
Mhm.
really,
But like with this house, what
There-
that would be for you, not to make sense to take the project like this, like you see like this walls and everything, like.
Yeah.
Is it like 10,000, 20,000?
oh yeah. If I sat down and I looked at this project and there was at this stage, I haven't even gone to see the property yet. If there's only $10,000 profit, potential profit, I probably won't go look
Too
at it.
much risk, yeah.
Too much risk. Because as we saw in our last project, we had a 500-year rain that took our roof. That was $8,100. I don't want to be upside down. So for me, on something this big, where you're going to be changing just about every room, even though it's not drastic, you've got a lot of risk. I mean, you're talking 3 months worth of a project.
Yeah.
It's not worth it to me to go into this for anything less than 35, especially if it's going to be a group project where I have to pay back the investors. I mean, I'm the teacher. You can't stiff your students, right?
Right.
So I would have a really high return rate of
Mhm.
35% minimum on something like this. So this would still be a go. But to get an idea of how I do my comps too. So I looked at the tax value. Now, when you look at the tax value, we understand that the tax value is basically what they're basing your taxes on. It's not a market value. None of them are going to buy the property. It's about as worthless as an appraisal. Appraisal actually has more worth because, somewhere there's a value, but they're still not buying it.
Yeah.
It's not the market value, but it's an indicator.
Isn't the tax value only that they just kind of like drive and they see how the building looks like and this is how they come up with the number?
Most of the time, yes, most of the time. Actually,
Yeah.
our house got reassessed and they just called me.
Yeah.
They didn't even come see the house and
I
we
told
got
my husband
reassessed.
not to make our yard so beautiful because I said like they're going to increase our tax.
Yes,
I said like make it clean, but don't make it gorgeous.
right? So the values that I used was I looked at the tax value and it was 225. I did the CMA. The CMA value was 264, and that's based on the comps around square footage value and so forth. I think the 264 is actually really too high, but I put it in there anyway because that's what it came up with. Remine, if you're familiar with the program Remine, it's one of the programs that we have in the multiple listing, the Maris. And the Remine combines valuations from different banks. And so their estimated value was 247. Zillow's estimate was 208. Now, again, I don't take a whole lot of stock in Zillow. I think that Zillow, rating themselves a 1 star on a 5-star rating in Missouri tells us that they don't even believe in themselves. They put those out there to entice people to go to the site, but people do go to the site and they look at those numbers. So if people are going to be looking at those numbers, we need to be looking at those numbers. So I'll add it in there. And then my estimate of the value is around 215. So what's the average? 232. So that kind of gives me an idea of, I think it's here. Zillow thinks it's lower, but most everybody else thinks it's higher. Where can we compromise? Okay, so my estimated value at this point is between 215 and 232.
And the average is including your estimate, right?
Yes, and that's including my estimate. Now that's after repair value. And I know the condition that I would put it in. So I'm comparing, when I look at these other houses, I'm comparing my quality to theirs. It has to be at least that good. Okay, what other numbers can we get here? Yeah,
So
that's
potentially you have 215 here after repair value, so projected profit is 37,000.
Yep.
But if you go as high as 230 something, you only can get better.
exactly. And that's what happened on the last project with Burr Oak. We started out with an ARV of 280, but then the market kept going up. We ended up selling for 330. So, yeah, and fortunately, because we had some major catastrophes that happened in there that ate our budget, but we were able to recover because the market kept going and because we adjusted. You have to continually think of your budget as dynamic. If something bad happens and you lose money here, you're going to have to give up something over here. What is it going to be? So kind of when you're planning, think about the things that you could leave off. On this house, automatically, I know I could not refinish those basement rooms. People are not going to avoid the house because the basement rooms are not finished.
Because right now you included the basement that is finished. So you're always doing like the best scenario, how much you want to repair it. And then as you see what is happening, you might just drop some stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And the things that mean the least are the things that are going to go first. Definitely. And especially, and you can think about that seasonally too. Like, I'm putting my house on the market, and the one thing I'm going to ignore is the deck. I'm not going to repaint the deck. It's not the season. And people understand that. So they're not going to come in and say, oh, I'm not going to buy this house because the deck's not painted. That's something I can give up. All right. So then what I do is I go back and I haven't gone to look at this house. I didn't go look at this house because I knew it was going to be under contract. So I didn't bother. But what I did was I went ahead and did an itemized cost sheet. I know the exterior, I'm looking at it and these all keep adding up. So my estimate on my pro forma was $48,840. That's my estimate right there.
And you take those items based on your experiences, and if you don't have it, you take from that sheet that you have from.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm talking about, what do you think about the process? I'm starting with the exterior, the gutters. I need to remove the awnings. I need a new front door. I need to pressure wash, all of these things I'm looking at. Less miscellaneous carpentry. When you take those awnings down, there's going to be some mess there. That's going to have to be corrected. So you just kind of think through the steps and put as much in there as you possibly can and kind of guesstimate. If you go through and guesstimate and this tallies up, see how close you are to that number, realizing that there will be things that you are forgetting. So if you've already surpassed that number on guesstimations, you are either really expensive guesser or you've underestimated the amount that needs to be done. So then I went to the yard, I went to the garage, I went to the kitchen, I went to the bedroom or the bathroom. There's only one bathroom. Then I lumped in because the flooring, there's only 2 rooms that are going to need vinyl, that 4-season room in the kitchen. And then all of the rest of the other flooring is going to be refinished. Okay. The bathroom flooring I looked at, I love it. It's darling. It's the original 1940s. It looks like it's in great shape. I'm assuming that I could have minimal repairs on that. So I didn't figure that in, but I lumped some that. I lumped some the interior lights. I lumped some miscellaneous electrical. HVAC looked like it was in pretty good condition. So I'm just thinking about repairs, but it could be a replacement. And if I go back up and that number has already exceeded my 48, it might be a little bit low. I need a mouse.
Yeah, me too. I always do that.
I have a mouse and I didn't bring it. And then figure in things like permits, demo, cleaning, because you're going to have cleaning. And that's a big enough house. I wouldn't clean it by myself. And I put 350. That's a pretty generous cleaning budget, but they might have to power wash outside. And staging. Staging makes a big difference in property sales. Big difference.
So what do you mean by demo?
Demo is to take things down, take things out. So if there's junk that needs to be removed, the awnings need to come down.
Shed.
Anything that needs to be taken out.
Jill, do you put like a buffer in there too?
Yes, I do. So just based on this, I do. I usually put, it depends on how bad, like this one doesn't look like it's in really bad condition. So I might put a 10% buffer.
Yeah.
If it's in really bad condition or it's in an area that is extremely tight, like U City or Brentwood or some of the other municipalities that are difficult to deal with, then I might put 20% in there.
And it-
Definitely.
And actually, that kind of reminds me to what Rick's question was early in the conversation about how do you know how much to budget? And I remember when I was starting, they said, maybe you want to budget a little bit more as far as buffer when you're first doing the budgeting, because you don't have as much experience with it necessarily. And then as you walk more properties and do more rehabs and things like that, you may want to take a lesser buffer.
Yeah, I agree. And listen to people. So this I'm doing before I even go see the property. Okay, now I'm going to take this information with me and I'm going to go see the property and I'm going to come back and say, okay, well, I can adjust this a little bit. So I'm still playing with it. Then I get it under contract with my inspection period. First people I bring out, my plumber and my electrician. How much is this going to cost? Then I adjust my numbers for that. Bring in the building inspector. How much do you think that's going to cost? And compare it to my numbers. Ask questions. If they're out doing it all the time, they've got better information than I do, even having done it just a few months ago. Because they're doing it today. So their numbers might be better. Or I can, find out that I'm right. And then you start to trust yourself a little bit more. I play this game on every single one of my rehabs, whether it's my house or all these others that I've done. I guesstimate how much it's going to be. And then I don't tell them what my guesstimation is. And I see how close I am. And I've gotten pretty good at it, knock on wood. I shouldn't say that out loud, but I've gotten pretty good at
You
it.
just kind of like have an experience, kind of like look at and you know how much you did, you had to budget for the last few projects, and you can be off like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 maybe. Right?
Yeah, and I've been fortunately really, really eerily close, and it's made me feel really good. But I also have to be very careful that I don't rest on that.
How many houses do you have an experience on, Jill? How many would you say? Hundreds?
I mean, over the years, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, over the
Yeah.
years. I'm not talking about like what.
But things have changed. So
Yeah.
even with the pro forma, when I developed this pro forma, or actually this pro forma was given to me by Jay Papasan, the one who wrote the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Millionaire Real Estate
He gave you
Investor.
this before?
Yeah, he gave me this pro forma.
That's nice.
So yeah, when I first started using his pro forma, probably 7 years ago, the cost was about $25 per square foot rehab costs. That's how much it's changed.
So what is
40.
So it was 2007, you said, right?
Yeah, about 2007. Maybe it was later than that. Actually, no, that was much later than that. I take that back. It was actually closer to 2000, a lot closer to 2014 that it was $25.
Oh, yeah, because you said 7 years ago. I'm sorry.
7 years ago. Yeah.
My brain
So-
is
7 years.
So Jill, do you have that electrician and that plumber on some retainer? Or is it just because you've done so much work with them over the years, they're willing to come out and take a look at that for you?
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes I pay them. It's a paid inspection. It depends on what it is. So like the electrician didn't charge me for the inspection of the last house, this house, the last house in Brentwood. He didn't charge me to come out and do the inspection. I use him so much for everything that he knows he's going to get a lot of work from me. Where the plumbing company, it's a much bigger company. They charge me for the inspection.
Gotcha.
That's fine. They,
But
you
you
know,
bring them both at the same time. You don't bring plumber first and then electrician second, or.
it depends. So like with this last one, plumbers are really hard to get right now.
Mhm.
So that's why I had to find the building inspector that was a former plumber. Because I couldn't get the plumber in, because I did the investors 5-day,
Business, yeah.
yeah, 5-day business inspections. And it happened, it was crazy, because I thought, you know, this time of year, it's so early, I'll have no problem with inspections. I got the property, I was gonna find out Monday night if I was gonna get the property or not, or if the builders were. So Monday day, I called the inspectors, 'cause I kind of had an idea I was
Yeah,
gonna get it. The
yeah.
woman didn't want it to be torn down. And I said, okay, I think I'm gonna get this property. Let's go ahead and get an inspection set up. If I don't get it, I can cancel it.
Yeah,
First available wasn't until Friday,
wow.
Ooh,
and Saturday was gonna be my last day. You know, I had,
So you had on Friday that inspection?
yeah,
What did you do? So you didn't do the building inspection at all?
I did the building inspection, 100% did the building inspection.
Okay.
But it wasn't enough time to get the plumber in. I was able to get the electrician in
Mhm.
right away. But I was not able to get a plumber, a plumbing company to come in to do that. So I made sure through the inspection company, I said, this is what I want. I need to have somebody who's strong in plumbing. That's my
Right.
major concern. I need to have that. So they assigned the inspector that had been a former plumber. Perfect.
Nice.
That worked out just fine. But otherwise, that's what I want to do is I want to make
But those
sure.
little things have such a huge impact, you
Oh
know?
my gosh, yeah. Yeah, you can lose your whole budget. Well,
Mm.
for example, on our last project, we were thinking that the electrical was gonna be about 4,000. It ended up being about 7,500. We expected that the plumbing was gonna be around 3,500, and I think it was 14,000.
Wow, triple.
Yeah,
Mm.
we didn't expect to lose a roof. That was 8,100. I mean, there were certain things that we absolutely planned for. We knew we were going to do new windows. That was the first thing we ordered. That was 12,000. I mean, it's a lot of money, but we had a really good cushion in there that we could absorb some of that. And then as the market gained, we could absorb even more. So it worked out just fine,
Yeah.
but don't count on that.
Yeah.
You know, do your homework ahead of time. Okay. So with the return so high, why doesn't everyone do flips? Right? I mean, we're taking these classes, we're talking about it, and that's what it is. But a lot of times it's too much money for one person to risk, and they're not confident enough to make the decisions for themselves, by themselves. Would you agree? That's pretty much sums
Yeah.
up why. I know that was what prevented me from.
Agents don't do it, whatever the agents don't do it, and how much information we have an access to.
Exactly.
And,
we
and
do
this is, and this
every
is
day.
that second part, not confident enough to make all the decisions.
Yeah, it is exactly right. So that's where we come in. Da, 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 da. So we'll talk about this a little bit because a lot of people are curious about what is this group investment projects that we have. So we want to make a path for everyone to be able to invest and join in, close the gap of the wealth that's in the United States. So what we have is a project where you are an indirect investor. The difference between a direct investor is you're doing it yourself, you're making all the decisions, you have all the liability. It's you and nobody else. What we have come up with is a way that you are released of the liability. Your name is not on the deed. It is not on the insurance. No one can come back and sue you for anything that goes wrong with the property. If the property fails, we are still committed to giving you your 10%. That's the promissory note. That is separate from the house, but it does act as your instrument as a lien on the house should anything come up where you didn't get paid, which is not going to happen because teachers don't stiff their students. But But you need to have, I would never recommend anybody go into an investment without a legal instrument. So that's what we've put. We've put a legal instrument, a promissory note. So in exchange for the dollars that are invested, you get a promissory note. Okay? This is an opportunity where we control all the risk and we make it so that your money is not tied up for years. It's a quick turnaround. Okay, so membership in the Big Picture Group, we want candidates who want to be active participants. We want people who are trustworthy and able to afford such a project. So that is very important. Never spend money you can't afford to lose, or you can't afford to do without for a few months, even though these projects are only basically 5 months, because you've got 3 months for rehab, and then you've got to put it on the market, and then you've got to wait till it closes. So by the time that's all done, it's about 5 months from start to finish.
How many do you expect the members to, because here you have to contribute like 5,000 to commit within the 2 months of joining. So then let's say, okay, so you are doing this the first month, then as you said, it takes 5 months to get this back. How many are you expecting to contribute within a year?
So on our last project, we raised $162,000. So people contribute whatever they want. Some people contribute 5,000, that's the minimum. Some people, I have people committing up to $300,000.
My question is, Julia, this is great, but my question is, and then you are getting 10% above that 5,000, right?
Right.
Okay, so my question is like, let's say that I am giving just $1 million, right? For within the 2 months of joining. And then when is my next, how many times you would like? Of course, I want to contribute as much as possible, right? To make money.
Right.
But is there like a minimum that you have to contribute at least 2 or 3 times a year, or?
No. There's no minimum that you have to put in. Sometimes there might be an opportunity where we'll do a second draw if there's an opportunity that the prices have gone up and significantly, and we say, oh, well, let's add these features so that we can increase the value. But typically the budget is set at the very beginning of what we're going to do, and we try really, really hard. That's kind of the point. We try to stay within budget. Can we always? No. On this last project, we went definitely over budget. We originally thought that the budget was going to be 65,000. We ended up spending 89,000, but it was worth it. And we didn't need to collect more. We were okay. We had enough.
So let's assume, I just want to kind of like understand the Jill map. Let's assume that we are talking about this $115,000 house that we didn't purchase, but we sold it for $215,000.
Right.
And I gave 5,000. So what does it mean to me if I gave 5,000 toward this project?
Right. And that's a really good question. If you give 5,000, it's not going to be a lot of money. This is not one of those things where you're going to put $5,000 in and get $65,000 back.
Right.
It is not going to happen.
No, I know. I just kind of like want to see them.
No, I get it.
So is it 10% from 5,000?
It's 10% per annum. So what you would do per annum, so annually. So $5,000, 10% divided by 12.
Wait a second, 10% divided by 12.
And then times the number of months. So number of months that it is used.
Like, let's say in this case, it would be 5, right?
It could be 5. It could be 3. It could be however long it takes.
But where is, okay, so it's 10% divided by 12 times 5 months. This is kind of like our assumption that we will have that money used for 5 months. I know that the money is kind of like just going whenever the project starts. So it's might be less than 5 months, might be 3. But where is the amount here of dollars? I don't see any with this.
So I'll show you when it's broken down.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll show you exactly how much you get. And it's not a whole lot. But what I want you to remember is that you're getting paid
no matter what.
You're getting paid no
Yeah,
matter what.
yeah. And
You're
I
getting
totally
paid-
get it. I'm just kind of like thinking like, okay, so if I give like, is it better for me like to give like maybe $10,000 to $15,000 for one project, or is it better for me to give like 555 somewhere here, like.
I gotcha. And you're gonna have to do that math yourself. I would
Mhm.
imagine it's gonna work out to be the same number if you give
Mhm.
20,000 in one lump sum, or you give 555, or it could be different if this one's only 3 months, that one's 5 months.
So the price of the house, whatever you're going to sell it for, doesn't impact how much I'm going to get. For me, it's.
No.
Oh, okay, I get
It doesn't impact, but it does guarantee that you get your money.
Right, right.
And it's something to pay attention to, because that goes back to, do you want to do it by yourself? Great.
Right.
These are the returns that you
Yeah.
should look
Yeah.
for. And you would be taking on 100% of the liability.
Yeah.
Risk, gain. Yeah.
We're having trouble with your system here.
I don't
Wow.
have anything to do with it. I'm just an agent here. I'm not even working here at the office.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. So you don't know if they have a back door or anything like that?
No idea.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, okay, I got one right though.
All right.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. I'm
You're-
sorry, I
No,
thought you
no
were
worries.
with
That's fine. Okay, so this was the last project we did. So that's a before picture, that's an after picture. I think we did a darn snappy job on it.
Beautiful.
Isn't it great? Okay, so let me show you kind of what you get when you sign up for this. Not only do you get the return of the money, you get a weekly update. So this is the actual newsletter that I sent out. Every Friday, I'd send an email to everyone about the project. So week 1, acquired. What did we do? What did we come up against? How did we handle it? Where did we adjust our budget? What did we buy? All those kinds of things. So every Friday, you'll get an update of what we did. And then on Wednesday, we have weekly Zoom calls where we talk about the emails that I've sent, what we're working on. It just a way to be able to answer questions, voice to voice, get all of those things answered. This was that house on the inside before we did the rehab.
Look at that pink one with the purple
I
carpet.
know, with the purple carpet. Look at that. Look at this kitchen. I love this kitchen. What cracks me up about this kitchen, besides the fact that it's so old, this over here, that's the only countertop they have. And they have 2 ovens.
Wow.
Where are they putting those baked items to cool? I mean, that's just crazy to me.
Maybe they
But-
were just manufacturer. Maybe they just had like a big table there and they were just baking and selling. Who knows?
Who knows? It's pretty funny. This is the lower level, and that
Mhm.
whole room was basically a hot tub. It was pretty funny.
So they were baking and then they were spending
Bathing.
their rest-
Baking and bathing. That's all they did. That's cracks me up. And then here's some more about phase 2. So we talked about phase 1, acquisition and demo, getting it ready. Phase 2 is the rehab and all of the steps that we put into it. And then goes week by week, comes with pictures. Here's part of the demo. You can see the kitchen has now been demoed. Bathroom, what we decided to keep and what we decided to get rid of. Try to keep as much as possible. When I first went into this house, I was like, oh, let's take out this wall. Oh, let's take down this. Let's take down that. And it was like, ching, 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 all the money that was going.
You are not doing this for yourself. You are just yourself.
Right. So you've got to strike a balance between I've done nothing except slap a little paint on and that should be acceptable. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And then the other side of I've overdone. You don't want to overdo. You're not going to get credit for it. Okay, there's pictures of the windows when the windows went in, when we did the tuck pointing, more pictures, when we had to get our new roof, there's pictures. Front door went in, the new flooring went in the garden room. So it's week by week by week, all the way. And even when I scheduled the municipal inspection, all of those things that, what we got dinged on, All those things that happened are gonna be in there. Okay. I need a better system getting back to this presentation.
No, you have, actually, you know what, you just showed me right now, because I always struggle how I can switch between those tabs. Because that window when you are sharing is always on the top, and you're doing
Mhm.
this right, you're just minimizing that, and I never did it, I was kind of like trying to,
Figure that out.
yeah.
So here was our itemized list of things that we did. And I even put the building inspections in there, the permits, and then I put links to the paid invoices or to landscape. So to, let's see, here we go, to the front lights. So that the investors could click on it and see, this is what we bought, this is where we bought it, this is how much we bought it for, this is what it looks like.
What is this? Oh, this is a very nice wall light. Where
Isn't
did
that
you
cool?
put-
That's
where did you
exterior.
put this?
This was exteriors that went right next to that cool mid-century door, matched the
Very
mid-century,
nice.
right? I was quite happy about that
Who
find.
is speaking this, you, Jill?
I did, but I mean, some of these things I picked, and that's the other thing too. I have final say. In the big picture group, I have final say because I'm not gonna allow any holdup of the projects. We do discuss what we want to do. Do you want to do this or do we want to do that? And I do take people's ideas in account, but the most important thing is to keep the project flowing and to get everybody's return.
Right.
So this was our itemized, and this was our estimate, and this is what it ended up being. And then these are the notes of why we had to change whatever it was that we had to change. And then let me go to the last part of it. And that's where we talk about the project summary. This is where we'll see exactly what everybody made. Okay, I keep everybody, whatever the investors contribute is confidential. But this is what they contributed. This is the monthly interest. This is how much they got paid at the end. So if you're talking about 5,000, there wasn't a huge return. It was $208.33, but you're getting paid to learn with no liability, no, you know,
Yeah.
it's very,
But somebody who gave 166, right, that first person on April 11, right?
uh-huh. Yep.
Somebody gave 166 and they got 8,000, 9,000 back. None of the banks is going to give you 9,000 for this amount of money.
Exactly, in that amount of time.
Yeah.
There's no place that you're gonna find that kind of return.
So it's good like you have this 5,000 for people who are starting just to kind of like see, and then the more confident they become and they trust, because everything is about the trust as well. That somebody who is living with them knows what he's doing.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. And then, you know, the different things that I put in and the, you know, the credit card usage and all of that. Now, I also made notes down here on how the project went. We bought the property for 166. Our interest cost back to the investors was 11,000. Even put in the utilities because those are a cost. It's not something that you ignore. So make sure that you're tracking your utilities, sewer, all of that, insurance. Those are tax deductible. I basically gave this sheet to my accountant, and that's how he did our numbers for my return. And because I had all of the things itemized, I could prove I've got all my receipts.
Yeah.
Cost of the rehab is in there. So the total project cost is $272,466. Now, if we collected 264 and we spent 272, how did we do that? How did we spend money that we didn't have, that we didn't collect? Because some of these items, the ones in red, are floating. You don't pay those until you close. So you could take your projected profit and buffer those costs. Commissions, staging, closing costs, total selling costs are all there. So it's broken down this way. We spent $283 between the project costs and the selling costs. We spent $283. Her selling price was 330, and even after that, there was a profit of 46, which was better than what we thought we were gonna get. Does that make sense? Okay. That's another way of putting it.
Jude, do you mind to show me the formula for this $200 profit for the 5,000 contribution? Because you have that formula, they're like 10% divided by 12, I believe, times whatever month.
Right, absolutely. I
That's
will
good.
show you that. Come on. I will show you that if I can get my computer to be nice. Okay, so on 5,000 monthly interest is, so if you did 10%, 5,000 times 10%. Okay? And then, that should be easy, that should be
500.
500, yeah.
Divided by
500
12.
divided by 12. Oops.
4166 a month, 67 a month.
4167 a month, okay? And then for the number of months that we held it, 208.33. That makes sense?
So-
So
So,
you, so the 208.33 is $41 times whatever months, right?
Right.
61 times the.
so Jill, on the, at the conclusion of the project, at the end of the year, when when you're reporting your taxes in next year, is there something that we get that we can supply to our accountant?
Yes, thank you for asking. So you will be 1099 just on the interest. So you get 1099 just on the 203. Some accountants say that you don't have to report that if it's under a certain amount. Talk to your accountant,
Mhm.
not an accountant. But you do, everyone gets 1099, and you can give that to your accountant and see what you need to do with it, if
Yeah.
anything. But yeah, and that's also good too, when you're 1099 and you have no, you're not on the deed, you're not on any of that. So lending, money options are easier. I have people that use self-directed IRAs, and they have to stay arm's length. Their name can't be on any of it. This is perfect. They get a promissory note for the IRA. They get paid back to the IRA directly. I never pay those investors. I pay the IRA back directly. And then the IRA gets 1099. So this works out well for those kind of strategies. But you want to take into consideration wherever your money is coming from, what costs do you have associated? Wiring costs, all of those things. As an investor, you want to look at those. Will the 208 offset those costs and make it enough for you? That's your decision. It's not my money.
And how does the process work? So you find this nice property, like whatever this 115,000 or the one that you have. And then what, you are sending an email to all your peeps and like, hey, this is what we are planning to buy, who is contributing and how much?
Yeah.
And how
so-
much information do you have to share for
Okay.
people to?
Yeah. So every project is
Because you
a
have to
little.
be fast.
You have to be fast. Yes.
So do you make a decision, you buy it and then you contact the investors, or?
It's always a little different. So this time, because the market is moving really fast and because we want to be able to jump on these, we're asking for people to commit what they're going to commit ahead of time so that we can say, okay, we have a property, let's get it under contract, but I can't show proof of funds if I don't have them. So we're going to have to collect the money, put it into this account, be able to do that. So I started collecting commitments just a couple of weeks ago, about a week and a half ago. And I've got several commitments now. My goal is to try and get to the 260 that we did last time, because I think that's a good number, because that again can buy us another
Once you
160.
have this to 60 committed, then you're going and you're looking for the property.
Exactly. And that's why I didn't put an offer in this one. The one that we did on Burr Oak kind of fell into my lap. That was a different situation. It was a short sale that was referred to me. And so I had control of it. So that's why the original person put in April, because I did that hard money lending to buy the property. And then, finish up the short sale before we started the investment work in July. So that worked a little bit differently, but right now I'm asking people to commit what they want to commit, whatever it is. And that's what I'm going to figure we're going to be able to move forward with. And for me, I'd love to be able to go back to the $265,000 collected and stay in that price range, because the largest population of buyers is between that 250 and 350 range that we were in. Perfect. I'd like to stay in that range. I don't want to go up in the $500,000-$600,000 range. It's too iffy. And I don't necessarily want to go into the smaller ones. It's iffy in different ways, but I will. I mean, so let's say we only collected 150. That's okay. That's fine. Then then as investors, that's what we have to work with. And it's an opportunity to show how we can use that money to do the same kind of thing. The same exact thing. It's just, you have an amount of money, and that's going to determine your area, right? Because if we get 150, we're not buying in Ladue. Right? No. So it determines your area.
Yeah.
It determines your project, but that's okay too. I like different scenarios. I think that we learn, and not everybody is going to be buying properties the 250 to 350. So if we end up buying a $75,000 property and fix it up, and that's fine. That's fine. But a $75,000 property is probably going to have more structural issues. So it's not going to be as glam. So that's kind of where we are on our thought process.
What is your cutoff date for that? To know.
So I'm going to say I want to have everything in and done and get ready to purchase by the end of March. So my cutoff date is the end of March.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
Be there or be square.
So when you are saying, Jill, that 250 to 350 is the largest population of buyers, right? So would you buy the house to flip between 250 and 350, or would you buy 150, 175 and sell it for 250?
Right. I want to be able to sell.
You want to be able to sell between 250
and
and 350. Okay, so it's not like you are looking for 250.
No.
Oh, okay.
I want to be able to sell between 250 and 350.
After
If I buy a
repairs.
$200,000 property and it needs
Yeah.
25,000 into it, and we've got a 25, or however it works, but I want to stay in that selling range
Right.
of 250 to 350.
Makes
So
sense.
the budget has to fit purchase price and rehab. It has to fit.
and that's
So like this, huh?
is that your 25 to 35,000 above
Yes.
repair? And
Yep.
and was it 70? Do you do 70%, or was that Michael that did the 70%?
That's Michael, and I like that. I like that when he does his ARV and 70% and looking for his rehab budget. I think I like that.
So for you, if you're looking at a 260, you want to clear 35,000 on the 260. Your repairs and all-in costs has got to be 260 less than 35,000. So that's the price range you're looking at purchasing.
You can work it backwards and get the same thing. Exactly. Now, depending on, I mean, like if one of the scenarios that is open to us is that I have clients that sometimes want to sell their property and they can't do the repairs. So we don't have to buy the property. All we have to do is finance the repairs and get 10% back. In that case, that's fine. We can do that in a month and get our money back. Then I don't necessarily have to get a $25,000 because the amount of profit that I go for is more an insulator for your money. Because $25,000 sounds like a lot, but it goes real fast when you've got $14,000 worth of plumbing and $8,000 on roof, and it goes really fast. So that's what I would say. Excellent.
Yeah, that's, you know, Jill, to your point, yeah, I think that's another great strategy is a quote unquote unsellable house. A person doesn't have the funds to rehab it, you know, and you know, I'm just going to use example here. Let's say they're wanting to sell it for 200,000, but really it's not selling because it's outdated and all of that. You can go in and put in 40,000, and once you recoup your 40,000, by the time with all the rehab, with all the new upgrades and everything, they may be able to sell it for 280, and
Exactly.
then they get their 200,000. You recoup your 40, and you get the profit from it. Or, you know, I've heard of some even splitting the profits with the seller, but you know,
That's what I typically do. It depends because most of the time, if I get a situation like that, they've been one of my students.
yeah,
And so I definitely want them to receive
it's a win-win.
profit from it too. So I would split the profit with them. And if it was their house, if I didn't own the house, I'd split the profit with them. If I
Yeah.
owned the house, I'm not split it with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win-win for all parties, you know.
Exactly. So it works out well. And however we find these properties, we talked about that at the very beginning. We are all potential wholesalers. If we run across a property, any property in any condition, we have an opportunity to wholesale it. Or, you know, if we can't afford to do this on our own, let's do it as a group. %100%. Okay, it is 8:02. I want to respect everybody's time. I've used 2 hours of it. You'll never get it back.
Well, this is a good.
A lot of value add, very well worth it. Thank you.
I'm so glad. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
it
you
was
guys.
Great. My son made varsity.
Ah, congratulations.
Sorry, guys, I was just late. And, you know, and then he had to tell me everything about, you know, how it went and, you know, how can I leave the house, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I will see you next month. Let me know, if you haven't let me know already, what you would like to contribute, if you'd like to participate in this. And we'll see where we go. And I'm excited to see the next adventure.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Michael Fitzgibbon.